Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the first meeting in 2024 for the Minnehaha County Commission. I'd like to call the meeting to order, and we'll note for the record a quorum of the members present. Before we get started, I'd like to remind everyone to silence their cell phone. Since I left my cell phone in my office, I don't have to worry about that. With that, please rise to the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we start the first meeting of the year with special business. And so first I'd consider a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. The next item is the selection of the commission chairperson for 2024. I would consider nominations or a motion.
I'd make a motion to appoint Commissioner Karski.
Second.
So motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Blyenberg,
Aye.
Kipley,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Karski,
Aye.
Bender.
Aye. Motion passes unanimously. Turn the gavel over here. Oh, thank you.
All righty. I appreciate everybody's support. Thank you for that. And we will now move on to a selection of the commission vice chair for 2024.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for Commissioner Benninga.
I'll second that motion.
Motion and a second for Commissioner Benninga as vice chair. Roll call vote, please.
Kipley,
Aye.
Bender,
Aye.
Blyenberg,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Karski.
Aye. Motion carries. Now we'll move on to our designation of official county newspapers for 2024. Morning, Tyler.
Good morning, Tyler Clack, Commission Office. In the past, since 2019, the Commission has chosen to designate 4 newspapers as their legal newspapers. South Dakota law requires a county to designate 3 newspapers for the publishing of minutes and public notices. All the information is attached, including letters from the 4 newspapers who have requested consideration. I'll just scroll down here just so you can kind of get a snapshot of what it looks like for county publishing expenses over the last, since 2011. Primarily, a lot of it is county commission minutes. That takes up a good portion of everything. But there's a publishing expense for most departments, though it's pretty nominal. Again, for your consideration is at least 3, but as noted, the commission has done 4 for the last few years. And there are representatives from those papers here if you have any questions for them.
Questions? Comments? Commissioner Bender.
I think it's worked well to use the all of these different news outlets in the past, given the kind of limited choices that we have under statute. I think this is the best way to reach the most people in Minnehaha County. So I would be in support of designating all 4 as the official county newspapers for 2024.
You willing to make that a motion?
That's my motion.
I'll second that.
Motion and a second. Further discussion. Roll call vote, please.
Bender,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Kipley,
Aye.
Blyenberg,
Aye.
Karski.
Aye. Motion carries. Moving on to appointment of Steve Groen as Minnehaha County Highway Superintendent for a period of 2 years pursuant to South Dakota Codified Law 31-11-1. Morning, Tom.
Good morning, Commissioners. Tom Greco, Commission Administrative Officer. I'm proud to stand before you this morning to ask you to approve the appointment of Steve Groen for an additional 2 years. His most recent appointment was on January 4th, 2022, pursuant to the law that was cited 31-11-1 The highway superintendent is to be appointed for a tenure of 2 years. This would reestablish Steve's appointment for the next 2 years. So I would urge your support. Thank you.
All right. Questions? Comments?
I would make a motion to reappoint Mr. Groen as the county highway superintendent.
Second?
Motion and a second. I've been remiss in doing one thing, and it's asking for public comment, so I'll get used to this job yet. Any public comment on this appointment? All right, we have a motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Benega.
Aye.
Blindberg.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Kipley.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. Now we are going to record a record of our non-elected department heads for 2024.
Good morning, Tom Greco again. This is simply for you as a commission to direct that the non-elected department heads be placed in the minutes as a record. We do have 12 non-elected department heads that are listed on the sheet there. Would urge your support for this motion. Thank you.
I'd make a motion to record the non-elected department heads.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any public comment? All right. This is not, we don't need a motion or a second. Nope. So this is just a record. So
Okay, there we go.
I appreciate you jumping on that, though. Thank you. So it's for the record, I guess. Appointment of the Minnehaha County Coroner for 2024. This one we will need a motion and a second.
Good morning, Tyler Klatt. So the, for you is to consider a motion to reappoint Dr. Snell as the county coroner for 2024. Dr. Snell has served in this position since 2011. South Dakota Law 771.4 permits a county to appoint their coroner by resolution, which is included with this item. As you may remember, last week we signed an agreement with Dr. Snell for his actual services, but this is to make it official for the next year.
All righty. Public comment. Commission.
I'll make a motion to reappoint Dr. Snell as the coroner for 2024.
Second.
Motion second. Roll call vote, please.
Blindberg.
Aye.
Kipley.
Aye.
Benega.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to the fun one, our salaries for Minnehaha County Commission.
Good morning, Tom Greco, Commission Administrative Officer. Pursuant to SDCL 7-7-5, requires the Board of Commissioners to establish their salary at the first regular meeting of the year. If you do fail to adopt a salary, it would be set by statute at $7,233. So before you today, not on the screen right now, but further down are two resolutions for your consideration. You would motion and adopt one. One would reflect a 5% increase to commissioner salaries. Another one would reflect a 7.5% increase to commissioner salaries. I do also want to note that the commission chair does receive an additional amount, which is listed on the memo here in recognition of the duties that they perform. I also have up there the current salaries, which is $32,822.40 in then preceding years. So generally, there's been between a 2% and a 5% increase since 2019. So a 5% increase would set salaries at $34,465.60. A 7.5% increase would set salaries at $35,276.80. And again, the chair would receive additional money in the amount of $1,518.40, regardless of the choice adopted. So I would turn it over to the commission. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, commissioners, questions for Tom?
Chairman, I have a question. I'm not sure if it's a question for Tom as much as for my colleagues. I'm curious if we've ever discussed increasing the pay for the chair or the vice chair. In my first year here, it seems like there's a lot of additional work that the chair and the vice chair take on. And I'm just throwing that out there as a question for input from the rest of you.
Just by way of history, I would just say that, I mean, it's just in the last few years that we've provided a pay differential for the chair. You know, I think that's an interesting idea. Personally, I'd say being the chair is some extra work, but you also have the ability to manage the workload by managing liaison assignments and other assignments so that you can try to keep the workload, you know, balanced between the 5 commissioners. And so I think that that's something we could think about in the future. I don't know that the vice chair, unless the chair chooses to take her vacations when all the controversial items are addressed, I don't think the vice chair necessarily has as much additional work. You know, there's an additional planning meeting, but that also can be adjusted by other assignments. So I'm comfortable leaving it where it is for this year, but I think next year might be something we could talk about as the year moves along.
Thank you.
All righty. I'm going to look for public comment on this.
Morning, Chair and Commission members. I would recommend that
If you don't,
Rick Weibel. Sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you. I would recommend that you keep the level at the same as the 2023 level and don't pursue an increase, because looking at the chart that is online there on the screen, we see that there are continual increases, and there's no way that it seems that we should be, as a county, looking at just perpetual increases all of the time. The other piece is that I did send information to the county commissioners regarding a proposed agenda item and something that had come up regarding the county regarding elections, and I did not get an email, a call, or any response from any of the commissioners, and therefore that kind of an audit check shows that based upon that due diligence, my recommendation of just locking in at where you were at 2023 is more than well justified to see where we're looking at for what you guys are going to be looking at in 2024. It is incumbent upon you to start looking at doing the due diligence on understanding the election laws, understanding all of the features that ES&S provides to you, and making sure that you are taking that next level. And so far, you failed to do that. So that's why I'm recommending that you lock in the 2023 levels. Thank you.
Any other public comment? All right, I'm going to bring it back to the commission. We have 2 options presented before us. One's for 5%, which is what pretty much as a body we have given through contract negotiations, et cetera, to all employees. Most employees, not all, about 70%, receive an additional step increase, taking them to the 7.5%. That's why we're presenting the 2 options, 5 and 7.5%. I personally am comfortable with the 5% that basically every employee in the county is receiving this year. Look for other comments, motions. Commissioner Bender.
And I would just note that, you know, I don't think any of us are doing this for the pay. When you look at the pay, and there are no benefits, no health insurance, nothing that's provided to commissioners. There's a lot of work that goes in that is, you know, not necessarily well compensated by the hour. But I think that we owe it to future candidates, you know, to try to keep the pay in line, that people who are giving up hours at another job perhaps or something, that it's financially meaningful in replacing that income. And I'd also just like to keep us from getting in a position that I think when former Commissioner Barth was here a week ago or so mentioned that there was a time when the commission gave themselves a very large raise because they had fallen so far behind. And I don't think that's where we want to be either. And so I'm supportive of a 5% raise. I'm not supportive of a higher raise than that, but I think that helps us continue to stay at a place where we can attract candidates for this job. So that's my thinking on it.
Mr. Chair, I would concur and make a motion for the 5% increase.
So we have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Further discussion? All right, roll call vote, please.
Kipley.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Blindberg.
Aye.
Benega.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. All right, so we're going to move from our special agenda, our special business, to our consent agenda. Consent agenda is published. Is there anybody from the public that'd like to comment on the consent agenda? Moving on then, any commissioner like to remove anything from the consent agenda? All righty, look for a motion to approve our consent agenda.
Would make that motion. Benega.
Second.
Motion second, call the roll.
Benega.
Aye.
Kipley.
Aye.
Bender.
Aye.
Blindberg.
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. Moving on to regular business. Authorize the chair to sign the guaranteed maximum price amendment for the Juvenile Justice Center. Tyler, you've been working hard on this project. We have a lot of people here that are involved with it, so I'll let you tee it up.
We do, thank you. So today, after about 9 months of working on design development and schematic design development, we have for you to consider the guaranteed maximum price for the Juvenile Justice Center. Between HDR and Architecture Incorporated and Henry Carlson, they worked to get us to the number where we wanted to be. The total construction cost proposed is $42,590,000. The total guaranteed maximum price being $50 million, and that includes both the construction and owner contingencies, the professional fees, furniture, fixtures, and equipment. Just to give you some kind of context for how long the project is going to take going forward, Phase 1 is expected to start in April of 2024 and run for about a little more than a year, ending in August of 25. And Phase 2, which will be kind of the administration and court part of the building, will begin in August of 25, ending in November of 2026. So we've got about 2 years ahead of us of construction. We have a number of the people from the design team here. Tegra is available on Zoom, along with Henry Carlson in the room. So if there's any questions for them, I'd be happy to let them answer.
Is Dick Strasberg online?
Yep, he's on Zoom.
He's on Zoom. Good morning, Dick. Can you hear us?
Yes.
All righty, good morning, Happy New Year to you. All right.
Thank you.
First off, questions for Tyler from the commission.
I'm just wondering, since Dick is online, if you'd mind just giving a little bit of an overview of the process that brought us to today to reach this guaranteed maximum price.
And before you start, Dick, if I could just kind of introduce you, I guess. You are our owner's rep for this project, I believe is your title, correct?
Correct.
And as the owner's rep, you're the one kind of helping us with the contractors and the engineers and the architects to make sure we get the best value for what we're building.
Yeah, that's correct. We started out by going through a selection process of the various team members through a competitive process for the architects and engineers, and then for the construction manager. And Henry Carlson was awarded the contract for construction management, and Architecture Inc., along with HDR as the architect engineer. So went through the design process for schematic design and went through a process there to really hone in on exactly what the county needed. And then it's been refined over the last many months to really push to see if we can get every dollar out of anything, that there's a better solution and still get the same results. Went through, I'd say, an extensive process on that, more than typical. And I think it's a real successful process. So now today we're sitting with it's on budget. The total project budget is $50 million, and the guaranteed maximum price with Henry Carlson would be $42,590,000. We can sure talk a lot of details on it, but it's been a good team and a good process.
All righty. I will open it now to public comment. Anybody from the public want to make any comments to the commission on this process, agenda item? All right, I'm going to close that off then and move it on for commission action. Do we want to, Dave, do you have anything you want to talk about? No? Okay. All righty, commission action.
Go ahead.
Well, Commissioner Benega and I have been part of the planning committee for this new juvenile justice center. And, you know, I would like to thank the Henry Carlson team, even though they don't want to get up on camera, and Dick for the work that you guys have done on this. It has been a very long process that has been multiple years in the making, and we had a number of people that were involved in even coming to the decision that this was needed, and then we've spent many, many months in the design and development phase and coming to this guaranteed maximum price for almost a year since we first came up with the budget for this. And so I'm very supportive. I think that this will be it will definitely be a game changer, I think, for juvenile justice here in Minnehaha County, and I think we're going to all be very proud of the facility that we're going to have, and I'd make a motion to approve.
I'll second that.
Second. Additional comments? All righty. Call the roll.
Bender,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Kipley,
Aye.
Blindberg,
Aye.
Karski.
Aye. Motion carries. All right. Thank you, Dick. Thank you, gentlemen. Thank you, commissioners, for the work on that. This has been going on for a long time. All right, authorize the Highway Department to purchase a Bobcat T770 track skid loader utilizing the NASPO Secretary of South Dakota Contract 17286. Morning, Steve. Congratulations on your appointment.
Steve Groen, Highway Superintendent. We have a 2012 CAT 299D track skid loader, and over the course of 3 months, August to October this year, 10 times the machine broke down through its track. We had it to Butler. There was nothing really they could find causing the issues. So we looked at our budgets, and we did have this in the 25 budget, but there's been so much downtime, we would like to move this acquisition up 1 year to pay for it. We're gonna delay one of our side dump trailers with your permission so that we can get back in. This piece of equipment is one of the main pieces we use for ditch maintenance, and that's part of the problem, is going down ditches at an angle. For some reason, the CAT isn't holding its tracks like the Bobcat does.
All righty. Questions for Steve? Public comment. Turn it back to the Commission for action.
Mr. Chair, I would just note that our highway superintendent is doing a great job managing equipment over multiple years to prioritize with some fungibility of these resources. So I think trading one thing up a year and moving one thing back a year is just a good discretionary use of his allotted resources, and I would support this, so I would move approval.
Second?
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. And moving on to authorize the Highway Department to purchase a semi-tractor truck using the Sourcewell contract.
Once again, Steve Groen, Highway Superintendent. This is one of the pieces of equipment in our approved 24 budget. We bought a new excavator 2 years ago and needed a heavier duty trailer to move it. The Highway Patrol came out and looked at our existing Sterling tractor and suggested that it was past its useful life and recommended that we find a new tractor. So we were able to get a Kenworth on a Sourcewell contract for a good price. So we added it to our budget for this year, and we're looking for permission. It is currently being built, and we're hoping to get delivery of this here in the next couple months.
All right, questions for Steve? Public comment. Commission action.
I'd make a motion to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Steve. All right, moving on. Consider a resolution establishing rates of pay for election workers and polling location rental rates. Good morning, Leah.
Good morning. Leah Anderson, County Auditor. And so in accordance, I'm looking for approval for a resolution to establish rate of pay for election workers, facility rent, mileage reimbursement for the 2024 election year. In accordance with South Dakota Codified Law 12-15-11, the Auditor's Office is requesting approval of the 24 election worker rate of pay resolution, which also includes facility rent, mileage reimbursement. Pay rates were adjusted significantly in 2023, and therefore I have not made any changes for the 24 rates. Based on South Dakota Codified Law 1217B, which added post-election audits, we have added a rate of pay for post-election audit board of $18 per hour. And the expenses incurred with the post-election audit will be reimbursed by the state per Administrative Rule 5-22315. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer those.
Questions for the auditor? Commissioner Bender.
So, and I looked through this, I just want to make sure. So other than the post-election audit board, the rates of pay stay the same. Are there any new positions other than that post-election audit board?
No, that's all.
So they're the same?
Yep.
All right. So how many precinct election boards will there be? Do you know?
For the post-election audit?
No, just for the elections, generally, for the general elections.
We have the absentee board, the resolution board, and the post-election audit board.
Okay. So is there a board for each one of the 81 precincts?
No.
Okay.
Any other questions? Commissioner Benega.
I'm just going to make a note that I'm going to abstain from this since my full-time job has a rental rate location issue that I think could be a conflict.
Okay. Other questions? Did I ask for public comment on this? Public comment.
Rick Weibel, good morning, commissioners. One of the things I just noticed at the Brookings County Commissioner, I've noticed in their agenda today that they have a rate for on-call election officials for emergency at $50 an hour. You guys are paying more than what Brookings is. According to their agenda today, the precinct deputy is $14 an hour. Precinct superintendent is $14.50 an hour. So I think you guys are doing a good job.
All right, turn it back to the commission for action.
I have a couple more questions.
Please, Commissioner Bender.
So, I mean, there's been a lot of questions about elections, so I just wondered if you could help people understand when we approve a rate on a per day basis for superintendents and deputies, can you explain what a day looks like or what that means?
Sure. So that's a long day. They would probably start a little earlier than 6:30 in the morning, maybe between 6 and 6:30, because the polls open at 7. So the polls are open from 7 to 7. So they would need time to set up and also tear down for the end of day. So I would say on average, that would probably look like a 6 a.m. to 8 p.m. possibility, depending on how much time that takes.
So a long day.
Yeah.
What about the other folks that are involved in the election, like absentee boards and absentee assistants, superintendents? What does their day look like?
Well, this is going to be my first year in it. I would say their day is it's a shorter time frame, and that's why we do it per hour. If we have more people than we need, we can send some of those folks home. But their day would start a little later in the morning, and as long as we notify our two main parties, if we're going to start counting absentee ballots early that day, then as long as that notification occurs, then their day can start early as well.
It's a big team of folks that have to work on that.
Yeah.
So I know there's been some discussion about the tabulating machines. Who operates those tabulating machines?
Mostly just the employees in my office. We don't have the temporary workers operating those machines. Those would be our employees.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? I have a few if nobody else does. How many election workers do you anticipate hiring overall, say for the primary and the general election? Do you have a?
I'm going to give a rough idea of about 500 people, with including the new post-election audit. We don't really know fully what that's going to look like yet. I've been participating in some hand count studies where we can get an idea of how long it would take to do the counting for the post-election audit. So that is still a little up in the air, but a lot of those studies are happening in the next couple months so that we get a better idea.
Who's conducting those studies?
I'm going to people that are outside of, so the state hasn't been putting forth any of that. So I've been attending workshops that are being put on by citizens within the state to try to get an idea of how long that would take.
Okay. You had mentioned previously about kind of like traffic control individuals, that type of thing. Are they included in here? Are they going to be paid election workers, kind of that liaison, that concierge when you have multiple places at one precinct or precincts at one location?
Correct. They would, we would be able to place them in the category of the precinct workers, like the precinct deputies, those type of workers. They could be in that same category because they could rotate. I wouldn't expect one person to be on their feet from 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening. We'd let them rotate their duties so that they can take turns being that greeter. So.
Okay. Going back to the state passed a law for auditing, basically hand counting precincts with audits, hand counting audits or hand counting ballots. Sorry for the lack of proper terms, but how many of those do you anticipate doing, or how many are you required to do? And are your employees then part of that number? I mean, are you going to need to hire more? What are you looking at?
The counting will be done by the post-election audit board. So the employees, as employees, we won't be doing that. The board will be doing that. And those would be assigned just as we do our other election workers. The number would be 5% is the minimum of our precincts. And currently we have 81 precincts. We also, there's a random pick for that. So it's a random paper pick out of, per se, a hat. It can't be computer generated. And then we also, when picking the races that will be counted, the minimum is to pick a federal race and then take everything that's left in that hat, put it back in, and then pick another race. It could be anything. It could be a ballot question, or it could be a local race on a precinct committee person. So
you're not counting all the marks on one ballot. You're just counting an individual race within that ballot.
Correct. Well, it would be up to two races, but. Yeah.
Okay, and probably anticipate then doing 5 precincts?
Yeah, I mean, my goal would be to go a little on the higher side of the 5%, if it's an odd or a.
Yeah, 5% would be 4, so,
Yeah.
and that's why I put the 5
So maybe
in there.
5 precincts, 4 or 5 precincts.
Okay, Thank you. Other questions? Okay, look for commission action on this.
Mr. Chair, I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Kipley,
Aye.
Blindberg,
Aye.
Bender,
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. Establish polling locations in Minnehaha County for the 2024 election cycle. Yours again, Leah.
Good morning, Leah Anderson again, Auditor's Office. I'm looking for approval for a resolution establishing the record of the 2024 Minnehaha County designated polling places. In accordance with South Dakota Codified Laws 1214.1 and 1212.1, the Auditor's Office is requesting approval of the 2024 polling places by resolution. Minnehaha County has a total of 81 precincts, which will be located at 63 different polling places. As a reminder, upon approval of this resolution, our office will be processing the precinct and polling location changes in Total Vote. This process could take several days, and during this time, we will be in a short registration freeze. We plan to send notifications out to impacted voters in an effort to make them aware of any changes to their precinct or polling place. Likely, this mailing will occur in February. It's always a good idea before heading to the polls to vote to use the voter information portal that's located on the Secretary of State's website to review a sample ballot and to locate your polling place. So that will not be updated until we get Total Vote updated.
Okay. Questions on this from the auditor, for the auditor? Commissioner Bender.
So I know this is a lot of places that you had to line up, and I wondered if you could just give us a little bit of a taste of that process and how that went for you as you were trying to line up all these different polling places. I know in the past we used to use a lot of public schools, and due to safety concerns and other concerns, there aren't very many of those on this list anymore.
Correct. So right away when I started, we had a few things come up. One was the city used to have control of some of the community centers, and the school district took over that control. And they're using those centers for classroom space and after-school activity. So we did lose a few of those, but then we gained, I worked with the school right away, the school district in Sioux Falls, and right away we worked with them to establish a couple new schools that we could use. The middle schools tend to work really well, whereas the elementary schools and the high schools don't work as well for us to use. So we gained 2 middle schools, but we lost a couple community centers. And then another great area for us to reach out to are a lot of the churches, especially ones that do not have daycare or childcare facilities. Some of them that do have those facilities still work out well because they have separate entrances, and so we're able to work with them. I would say the most encouraging thing for me in working on this project were a few of our churches that were actually excited to be polling locations. They were looking at it as a way to reach out to the community and help, and so we've had a very good response from our church community for a location. So any other questions?
Seeing none from the commission at this point, I'll turn it over for public comment. I think we have somebody up.
Thank you kindly. Penny Baybridge, Sioux Falls. As always, I come here just to listen, and I always think it's something I can add. I was a poll watcher in the last 2 years, and I just wanted to mention that certain things need to be sure they're given attention in these elections. At one location, there was 3 precincts in one building, and there was no clear indication when you came in the building which aisle you went down to get the right place. People were totally confused. It caused a lot of chaos. So to make sure that those people have more than one location, clearly when they come in the door, they can see where they go. Also, I was concerned about the lack of handicap accessibility. I observed people coming in that were handicapped, and the line was so long they couldn't stand, they left. And when I tried to mention it to someone, they'd say, well, we'll give them a chair. But it's not like you can put a chair in a line and expect people to keep moving the chair. I did notice there was a couple of churches that were attentive to the handicap and made sure they took care of them. But there were other locations that didn't seem to have a concern. So I would just ask that those also be considered when you're pulling all this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bainbridge. Any other public comment? Leah, would you like to address any of that?
Oh, sure. So that's why we're going to have the greeters this year to help with navigation. I'm also planning to order signs that have just the precinct numbers on them so that we can have good signage and that people can, if they know what their precinct number is, they can identify. The idea behind the greeters is to help a person know if they're in the right place, since we have so many changes coming up. And as far as the ADA, the greeter could also recognize if that individual needs help, or maybe allow them to move up farther into the line and not have to stand for so long. So we do want to address those issues.
Sounds good. All right.
Chair.
Turn it over to the commission. Commissioner Kipley.
One more question for the auditor. So coming up to the April election, the city election, do we have any circumstances where there's multiple precincts where people would be getting different ballots based on their precinct in, can you give an example of that and just walk us through those logistics?
Sure. So one thing to be clear on too is we do contract with the city of Sioux Falls, and they are combining the school and city election this year. So we contract with them, but they still run technically their own elections. We help with them. As far as the precincts go, what's going to happen with the school and the city is there are going to be different ballots. There's scenarios where we have multiple school districts in the city of Sioux Falls, and we also have people that are in the school district that are not in the city of Sioux Falls. So for that election, we could have a potential of, there would be about 4 different ballot options, and we will have to help the city mitigate that. We have 2 meetings coming up with them this week, and we're meeting on a regular basis. We meet with them just about weekly. I'm in constant communication with Jeremy at the city, and we've been working on a lot of these logistics over the past few months already.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Other questions, commission action? I have one before a motion's made. It's $200 per location. Is that per precinct? For example, Active Generations, are they getting rich by having multiple precincts? Yeah.
It's per location.
Per location, okay. And so that's almost a $13,000 budget for all these locations already. Okay. Commission for action.
I'll move approval of the polling locations.
Second?
Motion and a second. Call the roll, please.
Kipley,
Aye.
Blindberg,
Aye.
Bender,
Aye.
Benega,
Aye.
Karski.
Aye, motion carries. All right. Business section of our meeting is over. We'll now have the opportunity for public comment. If you are going to comment, there's a sign up. We just need record for our publications, who's making comments. So if you have any public comment you'd like to address to the commission as a body, now is the time to do that. We allow you 5 minutes per individual, 30 minutes total. Please.
Again, Penny Baybridge in Sioux Falls. This is in relation to just poll watchers. Poll watchers are representative of the different parties, and they are the independent third party that verifies that the city and the county is doing their job. And so I often observed when I was a poll watcher, poll watchers were dismissed. At one location, I was told I could go sit on the floor. You really need to be respectful of the poll watchers are there to verify to you, because when you have people, they're employees that go to a job and they'll tell you what a great job they did, but it's the independent person watching from the outside that verifies that for you and lets you know what was done well and what improvements could be made. Poll watchers aren't the enemy. They're part of that whole process, and they need to be included in it. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Rick Weibel again. What you've displayed here over the last couple of resolutions and the questions that you're asking, awesome job. Thank you. The work that you've done to expand the number of precincts to make it easier so that people don't have to wait in line, that's smart. And it puts you in a great position for the 2024 election. going from 75 to 81 or 82 precincts. That actually helps. And so as you continue your journey on looking at future elections, you'll find that as the county grows, you may have to readjust those precincts to make sure that you're always meeting the demand of voters. And your question's asking about handicap accessibility and Leah being able to put up additional helpers to make sure that people are actually showing up to the correct locations. That's top notch. Keep asking those types of questions. Now, as we take a step back and we look at how the elections are actually conducted, when we look at both options within the state of South Dakota for whether you do a hand count or a machine count, when you look at the state law and it basically says whenever the count is done by hand, it shall be public. So when we look at that, the poll watchers that could be there could actually ascertain how the election judges are interpreting each of those ballots. When we fast track and we look back at what happened during the Gore v. Bush case with the United States Supreme Court and in the action of the US Congress to come in and create the Help America Vote Act, when they wanted to basically say, let's get rid of these hanging chads and let's make it easier for voters to understand, but also give the tools to election officials, they never intended the public oversight to go away. And so that's why with this election equipment, they actually, and you can look at page 3 of the certificate, when you insert a ballot into the tabulator, it takes a picture of the front and back of the ballot, and it also creates a corresponding result file that together is called the cast vote record. That document is public. The standard is public. There's no public identifying information because they randomize the timestamp of those documents so that you can't ascertain which voter voted on any of those ballots. The timestamp is when you turn on the machine. It's that date and time that will be the same on every single ballot image and cast vote record. That's so that you can ascertain the accuracy of the machines. Mistakes happen. We've seen that in Pennsylvania in the 2023 election. And so you are one of the 4 counties that actually has the software that can actually show the public the cast vote records to make sure that they are accurate. Dodge County, Wisconsin has the same exact system that we have here in South Dakota, and they actually publish their cast vote records publicly on their website. So do other counties in Wisconsin. So that dissuades the idea that this stuff is not public. There's also counties in Texas, also San Francisco publishes them online. So when we look at trying to be transparent, just remember this: transparency is the inoculation to all conspiracy theories. And you have an opportunity now as a board to kind of set the marker out there that we are going to make sure that our elections operate at the high bar, no matter whether or not they're hand count or machine count. You have a good vendor in ES&S that through a contract, you can ask questions. You can bring them here. You can learn about the machines. And you have a county auditor that's already asking about how to use the machines properly. And so that's part of the test decks, the programming. And also now South Dakota finally enters in the normalcy of the other 45 states that had post-election audits before we did. So that helps in the transparency. So this is an exciting year for South Dakota. Thank you.
Jennifer Foss, Sioux Falls. I just want to say, as someone who feels very strongly about election integrity and a supporter of Leah Anderson, I'd like to thank this board for supporting her 2 measures today. Thank you.
Other public comment? All right. Commission liaison reports. I know it's been a busy week between Christmas and New Year's, and you've all been going at it. So I imagine we have nothing. So, okay. Commissioner Bender.
I'll just briefly, Commissioner Kipley and I had an opportunity to meet with Carrie Benz last week. There's some amendments being proposed to the charter of the Accessible Housing Board, and we had some questions, and she's going back and going back to the drawing board on a couple of items, but that will be coming to the commission at some point in the next month or so, I would imagine. So,
thank you. All right. Non-action commission discussion. All right. Moving on, we will have an executive session following this meeting for the purposes of South Dakota Codified Law 125(2), 1, 3, and 4, and 6. So for now, I will not adjourn our meeting. I will recess our meeting to go into executive session.
I think we take a motion to go into executive session. If you look on the cheat sheet that I had to always look at, we go into executive session and then you give us a break.
It doesn't say it. Need a motion. Okay.
I'll make a motion to go into executive session.
I'll look for a second.
Second.
All right, motion and a second, go into executive session. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. We will be in executive session, and we will adjourn from there when that is over. Thank you, everybody.